Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Obviously, as we've been talking about the past couple of days, the meta post season 4 reloaded is very interesting because of the damage profile update that they did with the patch itself, basically redoing a lot of the damage profiles for the majority of the weapons in the game, which sort of secretly has changed the way that a lot of weapons behave and a lot of them actually compete versus the top meta options. And over the past few days, we've broken down a few outliers. Today, I wanted to focus on one weapon that's been severely underutilized since launch that finally now, after season 4 reloaded, is getting some time as like an actual competitive decent choice. What we're talking about is the Hurricane SMG. This is something that's been, a ground loot option for some time, and you pick it up, you're like, okay, all right, I'll live with this, but it's never been something you like actively seek out. And it's not something you'd want to be using on like a top tier meta loadout until now, where it actually does hold its own against other great SMGs like the ISO, Lockman Sub, the Vel, the Vaznev even. So we're here on sim.gg, and if we go down and we look at the various stats here, we are of course looking at 300 HP, so max health in Warzone, and we look at the various average time to kill for each of these weapons, we get a pretty interesting story. Now, for what it's worth, when I'm looking at SMGs and comparing the TTKs here, my main cutoff for where something is applicable or not is about 30 meters, 30 to 35 meters for an SMG, because realistically beyond that, an SMG is not going to be ideal regardless of how good it is. That's more getting into aggressive rifle territory, LMG, ADS already territory. Outside of that, SMG velocity is not going to be all that great. The TTK is going to be pretty slow. And it's just ever so convenient that the Hurricane's only real significant drop off happens at 32 meters, 33 meters, just beyond that. So for actual SMG engagements, this is a rather interesting weapon now. So it obviously is our orange line here. You can see it's got a handful of damage drop offs, as do all these SMGs basically. And initially in the first 8 meters or so, 7 meters, it's not the most impressive sub. It edges out the MP7, the Vel 46 ever so slightly, but overall it's not anything too crazy. It's about 40 milliseconds behind the ISO. That's not a ton, but it's something you might run into in game, and that's noticeable, right? That said, if you land 1 or 2 headshots in a gunfight, this graph would change a decent amount depending on which gun is getting those headshots. But really where this thing starts to shine is from about 9 meters up through that 32 meter range. And that's a pretty decent chunk of engagements there that the Hurricane can hold its own. So from 9 meters, 8 meters or so, up through about 18 here, it's about even with some of the SMGs. Like, it's right there with the Lockman Sub. It's right there with the Vaznev even as well. And then you get to 18 meters and it really starts to shine. The Vaznev drops off a little bit more significantly. The Lockman Sub drops off a little bit more significantly. It's right there with the Vel, basically an indistinguishable difference in game and TTK there. The only thing that's significantly beating it is the ISO, and we know that that's basically the meta SMG right now. But even for a few meters here from 28 to 32, technically the Hurricane and the ISO are 1-to-1 there. But the Hurricane also has other things going for it. You can basically build the Hurricane to be full on mobility because it's got that larger mag by default, right? Whereas every other SMG, you got to focus on adding that extended mag and then going around that. The Hurricane's recoil is also ridiculously easy. If we actually scroll down here, we can see various different stats. For one, the bullet drop, because that added velocity is a lot better on the Hurricane, so if you're taking those mid-range fights, it might feel like it's hitting a bit more consistently, right? But if we scroll all the way down to the stats here, you'll notice that yes, the Hurricane is a little bit slower when it's reload and whatnot. Its ADS is a bit slower, but like I said, these are just the raw base weapon stats. Once you start to build this out and everything on the Hurricane basically is focused on creating a more aggressive weapon, it starts to really become a lot more efficient and a lot more competitive with all our other options here. You can see its velocity much better than every other SMG though, which is convenient to say the least. Sprint to fire, attack, sprint to fire, that stuff is going to be relatively the same with the other ones as well. So this actually got a very significant buff. It went from being a very mediocre, very average style SMG to now one that is actually considered to be a part of the meta conversation. So as we dive into the actual setup you want to be using for the Hurricane right now, quick reminder, if you are new here, every day I got you covered with all things going on in COD, whether it's news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns, you name it, it is right here. So feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and if you enjoy this video at all, if you find it helpful, let me know by dropping a like on it as well, would be seriously appreciated. So the Hurricane is actually kind of a strange weapon when it comes down to it in terms of the ways you want want to build it out, mainly because, like I said, there is no magazine option here. It comes stock with 50 and that's it. But outside of that, you can focus on a lot of mobility here and really just optimizing this weapon for being very versatile and very reliable. So initially, I got the X10 rear grip. This is going to be for better ADS and sprint to fire. And of course, we're tuning to enhance that even more like we usually do. I also go for the Quicksilver stock here. This is for better sprint speed, strafe speed, ADS speed. We're tuning for even better mobility. If you are super comfortable with the way that the Hurricane feels though and the engagements you're taking with it, you honestly could even upgrade to the Quicksilver Collapse stock, which is basically slightly faster than the Quicksilver one. It's like the no stock alternative here. You will notice it has a little bit more recoil, but it will be a tad bit faster and a tad bit more aggressive. So that totally just comes down to your overall level of comfortability with the gun, but either or there is going to work fine. I don't feel like you need an optic. I like the irons a lot and it's super low recoil, so it's not too difficult to stay on target. I go for the Olay laser, pretty standard here for that better ADS and sprint to fire tunes to enhance that even more. Again, I don't feel like you need a barrel either, mainly because the two barrel options that we have kind of suck. They're both going to slow you down. That's not something you need in a situation like this. I do go ahead and throw on a muzzle just for the sake of some consistency here. Again, you don't really need an underbarrel either unless you're trying to build like a hip fire option. You could go for something that would help out there. But for me, Lockshot KT85 in that mid-range area, you know, you're talking 18 to 32 meters or so where this does really excel. You throw on the Lockshot, it's going to be even easier to actually stay on target and you're just going to land more shots and end up having a more competitive TTK than even what we saw on the graph. Like I said, if you land one or two headshots, that really enhances this thing even more. Tunes to help out that control and the ADS speed there. Then lastly, you got more options again. You could go for overpressured ammo or you could go for frangible. Either or is going to work on all the subs here. Overpressured is going to induce that more flinch. So if you land shots, and especially if you're in like the mid-range, enemies might have a harder time staying on target and they might miss one or two extra shots, whereas you're landing your one or two extra shots, you win that gunfight easy peasy. Frangible is great because it's going to allow that regen to basically stop for enemies. They're going to not be able to heal as quickly, so you can chase them down if they're trying to escape from you because of frangible and maybe get that easier kill. Both of those are going to be a good choice there. I tuned for the slightly better range and velocity. That won't have a huge impact on an SMG setup though, but overall, the Hurricane definitely was a big beneficiary of the Season 4 Reloaded update. This definitely got improved quite a bit and now is certainly worth jumping in with and seeing how you like it because it is one of the better SMG options we have at the moment. That said, that is going to wrap things up for today. If you enjoyed the video, let me know by dropping a like on it. As always, it is seriously appreciated. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out to always guarantee you're up to date with everything going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.